Hey, Shalom, Shalom, Shalom. First and foremost, call hello Yahweh, by Shem Yahweh Shai, by Shem Production, of course, double honor, scribe to the apostles, bishops, and elders, great millstone. Salutation go out also to the fellow Akim out there on the highways and byways throughout the four corners of the earth, pushing this truth, all honesty, and sincerity, trying to wake up the remaining, hopefully elect. This is Naaman with the DC camp, and this video is going to address somewhat for all those of you that still don't believe that the so-called North American Indians, all right, are the tribes of Gad and Reuben in the scriptures, and they are indeed Israelites. And as usual, these Edomites, these so-called white people, throughout their history, there's nothing original about these devils. Let's just give it the respect it's due. I was going to say, but they steal things from others and call them their own. And you get in the second Habakkuk, second chapter, it goes into that. This is what they're known for. This is their MO, their modus operandi. All right, down through the history. What did they do with the Greeks? All right, they learned to exploit different cultures and peoples. They did the same thing as the Romans, and it's the same here with America and the other European countries. All right, and the revived Roman Empire, which is America, we do the same thing. There's no getting around it. Another clue as to who we're dealing with, if you're paying attention. Here's an article I found by way of Newsbreak. It says the American Constitution was adapted from a Native American nation. And they treat it like it just sprung up out of nowhere, that it was delivered in tablets. In other words, they're trying to portray themselves as righteous. But who did they get it from? This is something else along with the judicial system. This comes from Israel. All right. And they get a little disclaimer here. It says the author does not claim to be an expert in the field, but the article is based on credible sources. All right. And it goes on to say, the American Constitution, which protects the rights and liberties of the citizens of the United States, was not exactly written by the founding fathers of the country. And that's all you hear them reference, the founding fathers. Come to find out, this whole setup is based in witchcraft, Freemasonry, and yeah, that is witchcraft. Going back to those Hamitic deities, gods. That's what this is based off of. See, all this is recycled, those pagan deities throughout history, going all the way back to pre-Egypt with the original Babylon, Nimrod, etc., Cushites, and those before then. You get into the Akkadians and all that. All right, but yeah. Continuing on, it says Native American forms of governance influenced the founders who established the United States Constitution, founded on their democratic values, which we know is bullshit. But just, hey, follow along, please. That's a beautiful Gadite woman there. It says there were no modern democracies in Europe to draw inspiration from when the participants of the Constitutional Convention gathered in 1787. Let's repeat that. There were no modern democracies in Europe to draw inspiration from when the participants of the Constitutional Convention gathered in 1787. I had to highlight that just for effect, to let that sink in order for them to consider what type of government the United States should have. And all this time we were told, it's like I said, they're just miraculously, you know, a little drama. You know, they play these games, and you have to. We're trying to tell our people who you're dealing with. When we say devil, you have to understand the origins of that. All it means is liar and deceiver, and that's what this piece of shit so-called white man is. He's a liar and a deceiver. That's all he's ever been, all he ever will be, until he's taken out. 2 Thessalonians, 2nd chapter, which we're in that phase now. All right, it says Native American nations possess the most democratic systems of governance that any of the convention members had directly experienced, and yet you call them savages. Indian means savage. This, who you stole, I was going to say borrow, who you stole the ideal from, you call them savages because you wanted what they had. You coveted, again, Habakkuk 2nd chapter. You coveted what they had, which, as it turns out, was this whole country, this land. You got a whole lot of shit to pay for. And then you walk around here with your chest all poked out like people other than you don't belong on this planet, let alone America. With all the rape, robbery, murder you've done. That's why Numbers chapter 35 verse 33 says what it says. You keep talking about, well, we should forget and all. No. See, the Most High, well, Yahweh Shem Yahushua, after all, he created your filthy, crooked ass. So he knows there's nothing good. There's no redeemable qualities within you. That's why in the Bible dictionary, when you look under Edom, it tells you they're the only nation that is not promised any mercy from the Most High. And you know, looking at these mother effers' history, you understand why that is so. And yet our people, you know, it's not hardly a day that goes by. I don't hear about police shot a Jake a number of times for nothing. The latest one, some kid, they trying to, well, not the latest, I think this happened 2 years ago, but they had a search warrant. They were executing at the wee hours of the morning, and they broke into the house, and the Jake jumped up out of bed, and they shot and killed him. Tried to make out like he was armed, which he wasn't. Didn't even give him a chance. What do you expect somebody to do when somebody kicks in a door? Well, see, this gives them a license, if you will, an excuse to do what they do. A lot of these people, like what happened recently, I just read in Kentucky, somebody got fired for making reference to Breonna Taylor. They said, yeah, we killed, you know, that blank expletive. And kind of made a, turn it into like a recruiting drive. And said, if you want to kill people and get away with it, come to, I forget what, is that Louisville? Metropolitan Police, something like that. Yeah. And they fired him immediately. See, they all kinds of disrespect on something. She wasn't involved in anything, and yet you make her like a meme. Like, you see the total disrespect. Again, it's been proven that they lied about it. I didn't want to jump into that, but there's so much going on here that it's so much blood, innocent blood, all right, that you understand what's happening now with all the sightings in the heavens, the celestial events, the chariots. You understand why. Going into Zechariah 5th chapter, this is a thief. This is the thief. This is why you're seeing all these things. All right, but continuing on with this, it says the Iroquois Constitution, also known as the Great Law of Peace, is an excellent oral tale that records the founding of a League of Six Nations. comprised of the Cayuga, Onondaga, Mohawk, Oneida, Seneca, and eventually the Tuscarora nations. The exact date of origin is disputed. However, it was much before the arrival of European settlers in America. The Iroquois Confederacy dates back several centuries to when the great peacemaker established it by combining 5 nations: the Mohawks, Onondaga, Cayuga, Oneida, and Seneca. Around 1722, the Tuscarora nation joined the Iroquois, commonly known as the Haudenosaunee. These 6 nations joined forces to establish a multi-state government while retaining their own sovereignty. Now let's go jump over, let's see, where was that? Here we go. Native American forms of governance. Yeah, as usual, the so-called white man lies. And this is an article from 2016, November, almost 6 years. Democracy and the Iroquois Constitution. All right, and this is from fieldmuseum.org. Whoops, why did I do that? Oh, crap, Salaki. Here we go. Man, what did I do? Yeah, www.fieldmuseum.org. This is a blog. Democracy and the Iroquois Constitution. Alakawali, curator of North American Anthropology, Naguani Integrative Research Center, says, we are a nation built on the ideals of many, and Native North American contributions to our collective culture and society are immeasurable. The founders who wrote our U.S. Constitution, they wrote that our, based on their democratic ideals, yeah, right, were influenced in part by Native American way of government. The Iroquois Constitution, also known as the Great Law of Peace, is a great oral narrative that documents the formation of a league of 6 nations: Cayuga, Onondaga, Mohawk, Oneida, Seneca, and later on the Tuscarora nations. I just read that. All right, and it goes on to tell you that it was well before this so-called white man established what he did. It just didn't, he didn't just get it from nowhere, out of thin air. As usual, he copied something and tried to make it his own. The Constitution also commemorated on wampum, beads fashioned from the shells of whelks and quahaug clams, included more than a few familiar concepts: a restriction on holding dual offices, processes to remove leaders within the Confederacy, a bicameral legislature with procedures in place for passing laws, a delineation of power to declare war, which lately, you know, they supposed to go before Congress, you know, when you declare war. But what has been going on these last at least couple of decades, you sign an executive order to go around it. A creation of a balance of power between the Iroquois Confederacy and individual tribes, according to later transcriptions. All right. And this is a replica of the Hiawatha Wampum Belt, which represents the formation of the League of 6 Nations. All right. Formerly in the collection of Senator Daniel K. Inouye and donated to the National Museum of the American Indian by Senator Inouye's widow, Irene. I thought he had passed away. Okay. Founding fathers such as Benjamin Franklin were in regular contact with the Iroquois Confederacy, and great council leaders were invited to address the Continental Congress in 1776. Did you ever hear about that? The 6 nations of the Iroquois Confederacy, or Haudenosaunee, okay, I said Saw, it's a Shaw, people of the Long House, thrive today. At the field, we are proud to hold in trust a collection of over 200 artifacts labeled as Iroquois, dating from the 1900s to the present day, and another about 200 from the separate nations that comprise the Confederacy. Wampum belts, which is what this is right here, all right, woven with beads made from shells, are used to record history and commemorate important events. In the future Native North American Hall at Field, you'll be able to see a display about wampum and learn more about their uses and significance. And remember to participate in democracy by voting. When you do, bear in mind the legacy of the Iroquois Constitution. But they're not. They're not, because what? He's put his spin on it, and that's what he's taught. This is what he's good at. Teaching and perpetuating lies. All right? He's got the whole world under his spell down there. And he, I'm talking about, is the so-called white man, under his spell. And what's going on now, he's trying to continue that with technology. He doesn't want to, especially with Israel, he does not want to let us go. See, he thinks he's smarter, and he thinks he's going to do one above or go further than ancient Pharaoh did. All right, because, you know, America's so exceptional that the prophecies don't apply to him. Doesn't he have something? Now, I have been quoting, you might as well get it, Habakkuk 2nd chapter, because that's who we're dealing with. All right, this is Habakkuk. Let's go to 2, show you what you're dealing with. See, he can't get around these prophecies. And let's start right at 4. Behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. And the just we were talking about here are the Israelites. All right, and you go to 1 Corinthians 12th chapter, it breaks down those gifts. And these things are only given to Israel. All right. 5, yea, also because he transgresseth by wine, that wine is his philosophies and doctrines. He is a proud man, and I alluded to that earlier. There's no one more proud than an Edomite, so-called white man. Neither keepeth at home. He's in everybody's business around the world, trying to police the world. Who enlargeth his desire is hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied. He's a covetous bastard, to the point where it becomes avarice. And that's greed on steroids. He says, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. And this is a warning. As a result, it says, woe or destruction to the Chaldeans. Verse 6, shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increases that which is not his? And you'll have Gad tell you, if you ever talk to him, which I grew up around a lot of them, where I'm from, they can't stand this motherfucker. I'm talking about so-called white man. But you'll have a, few Uncle Tomahawks, well, more than a few actually, but especially amongst the like Lakota, oh, they can't stand. And a lot of them, it's the women that are like, fuck this shit. All right, you better believe. It says, woe to him that increases that which is not his. And the question is, how long? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. And that's what this monetary system is all based on, is debt. That word there is abatyath, and that's debt. All right. It says 7, shall they not rise up suddenly that shall bite thee, and awake that shall vex thee, and thou shalt be for booties unto them? That's Isaiah. Let's get that real quick. 33. Let's see. And 1. You best believe this is coming back on you. This is old Most High be gracious to us. It says, woe to thee that spoilest. Who is it talking about? The so-called white man, the Edomite. And thou wast not spoiled, and dealest treacherously, and they dealt not treacherously with thee. So he got off on doing that. This is how he got the world. And you gotta remember, the Renaissance, a lot of that, when he got ready to do what he's gonna do, he had to replace the images. So you no longer had jakes like you and me that were the saints and the Most High, the heavenly host, that were dark skinned. No, he had to paint over all of them. And then he went all, especially with the New World, and said, if there is a Most High, the heavenly hosts, they look like him. And that especially decimated the northern kingdoms who were over here, and Columbus knew that. And a lot of people are being made aware now that that bullshit story about, you know, Columbus sailed Ocean Blue in 1492 or whatever that fucking rhyme is. It's bullshit. All right. Continuing on, it says, and this is what's going to happen. And when thou shalt make an end to deal treacherously, thinking he got everything all sealed up, all right, and the way he wants it says, they shall deal treacherously with thee. And a lot of that has to do with all this truth coming out, all right, and people realizing that this motherfucker, the so-called white man, is a piece of shit, has always been a piece of shit. And people are angry now, and that's goes into Revelation 11th chapter, all right. The nations were angry, all right, and how he's messed up under his stewardship, so-called white man's stewardship. Look at this, look at the condition of this world. You got to know who the enemy is. And people actually finding out all that you know, that veil, as we say in Isaiah 25 and 25 verse 7, that veil is being lifted off the people. You know, their eyes, they see the truth. And you always been a piece of shit, and that's why I said through his technology, he's trying to extend his rule. This is what this is all about. He knows the people are starting to, you know, waking up. But it's coming to a point where it really doesn't matter. He's trying to clamp down. He wants you to, he's trying to orchestrate it in such a way that you got to go to him for everything, like we as a people have had to do. He wants this as his world. This is the world. He shut down the world with a lie, with nothing more powerful than the common cold. That's an illustration of power in and of itself. It's not your politicians, it's the elite bankers, the banking families. This is where this directive came from, with this medical bullshit. All right. Verse 7, it says, shall they not rise up suddenly that shall bite thee, and awake that shall vex thee? People waking up, like I said, and thou shalt be for booties unto them. 8, because thou hast spoiled many nations, all the remnant of the people shall spoil thee, because of men's blood, and for the violence of the land, of the city, and of all that dwell therein, all the wars that have been initiated over bullshit, just for profit's sake. Verse 9, woe to him that coveteth, and evil covetousness to his house, which he has done, that he may set his nest on high, that he may be delivered from the power of evil. 10, thou hast consulted shame to thy house by cutting off many people. You're looking at a people that could end world end world hunger. I was going to say tomorrow, but let's just give it a week or so. Yes, because all the wealth is in their hands. All these food processing plants that have mysteriously caught on fire the last year and a few months, that was all orchestrated. All the livestock that's been killed off, that's orchestrated. They want to establish this new world order, for those of you that still believe that this is all conspiracy theory. Hey, the joke's going to be on you. All right, because we're out there, Ezekiel 3rd chapter, we're out here trying to tell you, you jakes, what the deal is. And you scoff, fan the hand, you know, but hey, at the end of the day, you're the one that's going to get hurt. 10, thou hast consulted, verse 11. For the stone shall cry out of the wall, and the beam out of the timber shall answer it. Woe to him that buildeth a town with blood, and establish the city by iniquity. Esau Edom all day long, every day. Behold, it is not of the Most High, or the Lord of hosts, that the people shall labor in the very fire, and the people shall weary themselves for very vanity. It is empty. For the earth shall be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Most High, and it is. That's what we're out there doing. They can't stand it. As the waters cover the sea. 15. Woe unto him that giveth his neighbor drink, that putteth, and this is what he did both literally and figuratively with Gad, because Gad couldn't handle what they call fire water. All right, so he loved watching Gad get fucked up, but Gad got him back with tobacco. See, it all works out. Woe unto him that giveth his neighbor drink, that puttest thy bottle to him, and makest him drunken also, that thou mayest look on their nakedness, their philosophy and doctrines. That's okay. And Gad got, you heard all the horror stories of the boarding schools trying to get them to turn away from their customs. And what was the saying underneath? Oh, no. Kill the Indian and save the man, or something like that. All the sexual abuse. They've had graves recently found that were like at least over 100, maybe 200, mass graves from these, were they Catholic schools? Yeah, Catholic, This devil got to pay. It says, and here's 16. The point, thou art filled with shame for glory. You can't stand all this stuff that's coming out. Well, it's critical race theory. Our children shouldn't be taught this. This is madness. No, it's madness that you did it. You got away with it for so long, but you can't get away with it no more. And the fact that they weren't teaching this anywhere from kindergarten to 12, it's like, people, what are you talking about? All right, and if a teacher even gets close, going off the rails, whatever those rails are, they get fired. Thou art filled with shame for glory. Drink thou also, and let thy foreskin be uncovered. The cup of the Most High's right hand shall be turned unto thee. Lamentations 4, 20 and 21. It's your turn, you damn devils. It says that cup is going to be turned unto thee, and shameful spewing shall be on thy glory. Now all these lying founding fathers that were warlocks and witches and all this shit, all this is coming out. But if you didn't know any better, you were thinking these were gods. No, they're piece of shit Edomite, so-called white men, that are just as shady as any of you that ever walked the earth before and since. That's all. Nothing special about them. The cup of the Most High's right hand shall be turned unto thee, and shameful spewing shall be on thy glory. 17. For the violence of Lebanon shall cover thee, and the spoil of beasts which made them afraid because of men's blood, and for the violence of the land, of the city, and of all that dwell therein. So yeah, you got a lot to pay for, you devil, and you will pay. There's no getting around it. You can try to offset the prophecies all you want, but it's not going to work. And we have that assurance. All right? This is what's promised us. All right? When you go to the end of Revelation, when you go to 13 here, it says, if any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. You screaming and hollering and bitching about that, like the goat that you are. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints and the saints of Israelites. So, doesn't look too good for you, Esau. It really doesn't. But, hey, no one deserves it more you what you're about to get. And that's all of you. All right? The Most High is punishing nations. Not all Israelites were wicked, but the whole nation had to pay. So guess what? Your turn. Hey, so with that, I hope whoever views this is edified. This has been highlighting the fact that the U.S. Constitution didn't just pop up out of thin air. As usual, the so-called white people, the nation of Edom, that's the biblical nationality. Yes, those are the ones that the Most High hates. And they have no hope. They have no hope in repentance. That's Hebrews chapter 12, verses 16 and 17. There's no redeeming qualities for these bastards. Their whole history has been nothing but about war, bloodshed, lying, deceit. They are the wicked. Malachi 1st chapter, verses 1. The point is in 4. They like to make the point, well, the Greeks start civilization. No. It tells you in First Maccabees, this is when evils increased, when these so-called white bastards came into power. And when they took over Macedonia, this is when evils started to increase. Philip Macedon, his son was Alexander the Freak. You know him as the Great. This is when evils began to multiply on the earth. Can't get around it. That's why you took those books out of the Bible. But the truth is being told. You see, half hadn't been told, but now it is. The rest of it is coming into play. All right, hey, so with that, shalom.